And Alice?
All right, hello and welcome everyone to the next in our BPC webinar series. This particular session is for procurement, and we're going to talk about Forms Builder, the also known as SmartForms today. So because we do these virtually, I always like to share my visage. Just so you know, I come with a bit of experience in procurement. I've managed operations for a little over 7 years with 2 different companies. So I've worked with the SAP Ariba Procurement Solutions, on-demand solutions for a good number of years, as well as working with Ariba's customers to support those solutions. So for today, we say that this presentation is typically for our SAP buying administrators. Buying is the new terminology for what we called P2P. However, forms they're in the buyer, in the buyer side, but they don't require any other functionality. So you don't have to have P2P. You could have P2O, you could have invoice management. You just have to have this subscription, not necessarily any other solution turned on. So I'll do a little I've done an introduction of myself. We'll do a little introduction to the topic, an overview of some concepts, and then today I'll get into a demonstration. I will show some concepts of building and then show you what it looks like when something's built out. At the end, we'll wrap up with any questions you have, and also Colin will he'll have a poll that he'll ask you to take at the very end, just a couple of questions, but they're very meaningful for us. So I do ask that you just take, it won't take you but maybe a minute to answer those, but they help us measure the value of these webinars to our customers and our potential customers as well. So with this feature, there are 2 system groups that are necessary for you to be able to create and administer the forms. So the custom form designer is anyone that you would want to be able to design and then publish the form. Now, publishing doesn't make it for use. It makes it ready for use. And then the forms administrator is probably that person you see as the gatekeeper. This is the person who's going to make sure everything's right before you actually do make it available to either fully public or to whoever you've designated in the access controls. So those are 2 system groups that come into play with this feature. Forms Builder is it's self-service. We've in procurement we've had e-forms, the equivalent to a D-form from the sourcing and contract space, and we've had to engage with Ariba through an SOW and have consultants work on that. Forms Builder opens this up and allows us as procurement managers to now build our own forms. There's a lot more freedom to sort of own your solution and work on it. Presently, it's available in the SAP Ariba buying solution, so it is not available to customers who use D-forms yet. That is, and we're in the 1.0 version right now. 2.0 is scheduled to come fairly soon, and we're going to see more enhancements and functionality available to us in this next release. Okay. The forms you'll find are fairly easy to build. We drag and drop widgets into a space and create a form and or a template. We also have some layouts available. So if you're using forms with your guided buying, you can apply a layout that makes it look, it gives you a little customization, sort of like the dark and light theme that we have, to make it look fluid with the rest of that solution. The approval flows are controlled within the forms builder. So these are not the same approval flows that you access through your Manage Approval Process menu. These are specific to the forms. They have the ability to create conditions and add groups and watchers, but not as dynamic as the approval processes that we currently have in our procurement solution. That's something I think that is going to be built out and we can look forward to, but it's, there's a functionality available to create these approval flows. We can also take the form and translate it, and I'll give you a list of the languages that are supported. You're able to export, translate, and upload a translated version of your file. Okay. There's not a fact table as we're used to in the reporting scheme in Ariba, but you can export the data directly into a CSV out of these forms. And that has an added benefit because that means you can also integrate with other solutions based on these forms. So just a couple of important terms just so that we're using the same language. So widgets, you're going to see there's sort of these drag and drop elements that represent fields, tables, or some other type of content. They actually can even link to your master data. So they're just allowing us different types of data collection or data population. Conditions, much like we talked about them in our procurement solution already, these are rules for the fields or approvals that we can create within the form. And then forms and extensions, this is what it's called in the menu. So if you're looking for Ariba Form or SmartForm or Form Builder, it's actually just called Forms and Extensions within the Manage menu. When you have the permissions, you will not see those until you have the right permissions to see. Anyone who's not creating the actual templates or publishing forms is going to just see these in their regular create options if you provided them access to whatever your form is. And I've seen some very creative uses for these forms at the moment. Okay, so I'm going to start to get into the demonstration today. Let me bring this over. Okay. I'm going to come in from home, just to go back to my home page. And you'll see in the Manage Forms and Extensions. Now, I have given myself both the ability to create and also the ability to administer these forms so that I can do all end-to-end. When you first come in, you're going to see that we have sort of this blank slate that we can work from, right? And here we've got a couple of published projects. Out of the box right now, it's just a blank template. There's no standard or prepackaged template. I do think that may be something that we see down the road, okay? So if I was to start with a completely blank template, it would look like this. And I could start by naming the form, giving instructions as to what the form is used for, and then you can see it has some areas in the layout already for where I can add widgets. We have a multitude of widget types where we could just use an input, a text area. You can even just have paragraph text if you want to start with a set of instructions at the top. You can create a header for a section, same concept to kind of group areas of your form together, drop-down menus. And so it's quite easy that you could just bring something in like this, and then you're going to see over here you start to have the properties that are associated to this particular widget, this particular field in this case. So the field label is something that we can change. So I may call this location, or maybe region is better. Okay, I can talk about the size. So if I want to make it larger, so that the values show up a little bit larger, we can do that. The hint text, so choose the region for this. Okay. And you'll see that that will actually appear here. Now there are some that also have help text, and we can, I think this one may as well, yes. And we can actually provide one of those little info bubbles that is going to appear over here. So my list might be Namer, EMEA, APAC, okay? And those are the 3 regions. I can also import a list if I had a list that I wanted to use. If I only wanted to use 2 or I wanted to add 2 more, I can do that as well. Whether or not this field is required is a quick toggle, and you can see it's then marked with the asterisk. And then I'm going to scroll down a little further, and region. Okay, something of that. But now you're going to see that I have here that pops up. Now if I decide that I want this somewhere else on my form, I can drag and drop and reposition. I can actually title the panel as well if I wanted to. So if this became geography, and then there was a whole bunch of other questions related to it, I could call it that. The form name itself, I can change the title. Okay, and then I could provide or hide the instructions. So maybe I want to say, this form is strictly for demonstration. Okay, right? And then if I wanted to, you can see them there. If I take them, toggle them off, they disappear, okay? And I talked about those themes. So this is a standard theme. We also have the guided buying theme. There are others that can be enabled, and so we can, but these are the ones that I have available in this particular site, okay? I'm going to take you over. So once if I was done, the next thing to do would be to create my approval flow. I can also preview my form within, and I only did that one field, so there's not much here to preview what it would look like. And then I also have options that, well, once I saved it, I can save it as a template, I can delete it, or I can make a copy. So I'm going to save just so that we can do some of those more options. And then you can see, so I could copy the same form. If I wanted to, maybe I'm creating a form that's similar but has nuances by region or something, and then I would create that copy and do so. And I can delete. And then if I like this one and I want to use this as a template for future forms that I build, I can do that as well. So for this one, I'm going to delete. We're going to take a deeper dive. I'm going to just say, do you really want to do that? I do. I really do. Okay, so that one's gone. And let's go back to, go back one. Let's take a look. Oops, I went too far back, I'm sorry. I'm going to come back in. Okay, so there were a couple that I created and published and one that I have in draft. So we're going to come in and look at the draft that I have, which was really a copy of the original, so nothing changed there. So I created the form title, a little bit of instruction here, and then you see I started to come in and, request type, what are those types? I can add a condition based on other things, so that this might be required if something else happened. I can, those are things that we can do. In fact, I have a field here, and you see how this is showing up with this gray box. This particular one has a condition on it that says I'm going to require this justification if my estimated cost is greater than $1,500. So if I've decided, and that's because there's some sort of policy that says when I have something above and beyond, I have to do that. So let's come in and take a look at what it looks like to edit, well, to build a condition. So what I did was, my options are I can require. I could actually also not even show this unless this was. So that might be an added one. So I may say, don't even show this field, this widget, if it's not above $1,500, right? In this case, I'm saying you could show it, but it's not going to be required unless I'm at that point. We can hide. We have the enable, disabled, set, and invalidate. So these are all different types of options. Where you have this function, you can actually define expressions with formula. Obviously, I'm just doing something pretty simple for us here today. If I decided to take this away, I could simply delete. I could duplicate the statement and then create another condition with something different, okay? All right, so I'm going to click done. Now, let me just make a quick edit to this, what I'm going to do here. So I've decided that this is not going to be called capital asset request. It's going to be called capital expense request. And that's just a nuance in terminology, but it means something different to my organization potentially, right? So here I defined a list just as I had before. You saw me do with the regions. Here it's the type of request. I could then use, based on this type of request, I can build conditions in my approval flow. So for instance, when the value in the request type is IT hardware software, I wanted to go to the budget owner for IT hardware software, I can add that in, okay? I also created a similar thing for what the reason was. Our need by date is just a date drag, a date and time. You can include or not include the time if you need time stamp in there, okay, and whether or not it's required. So I'm saying it's not required here, but it's information that I would like provided, okay. And then if I the help text is basically is basically saying if it's left blank, the value is 0. So when I export this, if the user leaves this blank, it is left. It will come across as nothing. We could put defaults in that say default it to a particular date. I wouldn't do that with this, but we might be able to. Okay. Let's come down to estimated cost, right? So this was another. This is a currency style. So you can see there's some defaults in here. I'm going to add more. So me being in North America, we are missing Canadian dollar. There we go. That's important, right? Of course, if you have a list of currencies, it might be easier to import those than create all the ones that you have. Okay. The hint text right now just throws out the dollar sign. That's fine. And I left this as unrequired when I built this, but actually I want to require this. Okay. Again, we can put that in. I'm just leaving it as 0 because that's fine. And you can see this is being driven by, let me escape out of there. Oh, I need to come away from there. It was, it had my hint text, and I think I just went away from it too far, sorry. There we go. So it's putting the label in, and the hint text was just that, okay? Then I came down and I used a multi-choice. So multi-choice we can bring in, and also I'd like to show you, you can do this. So you can bring a widget into a layout area and have multiples in. Now you can see also that the multiple choice option you can do in a column. If you had more, you can also do it across, side by side. Because of the way that I brought this in, it already says, well, you know what, we can't do this side by side. It won't fit that way. So it's not even giving me that option. My only option is one column here. If I was to change them, you can. So here I picked out responsible departments, and you can see you can just simply add other, and it'll give you an other box if you want to. Okay. Again, these are being required. I'm going to take this one out. But again, you can pull things in. You can reorganize how you want these done. And then this last one, so here I used the hyperlink. And so you can see here I put the field label in, and you can decide whether or not you want to show that. I did because I'm using it as sort of instructions here. And then this is basically when you have your hyperlink, this is the name that it appears as. There's the there's the actual URL behind it. Again, you could add conditions. So the way I did this was my quote-unquote purchasing policy. And then over here, I had a checkbox that's required. And then, so I can actually add condition here that would invalidate, right? And then I would have to say blank, actually. So, and then I could just say, you know, this has to be filled out. Can't submit it without. So you can create these invalid condition statements here. All right. Actually, I want to say not equal to. There. Okay. And then what would I say? You must confirm the policy before you can submit this request. Right? And there we have there. Okay. Now on the approvals, the next thing would be to do our approvals. So I created supervisor out of the box is the one. Now, if you don't want any approvals, if you're just gathering information and you want to be able to export these and feed them to another system, you can just toggle off any approval and there's nothing required. Out of the box, the first thing that's going to come in is the supervisor. Okay? Then I added in budget approvers, and I started with facility managers just to show you that you can do these in parallel. I can take them out. These are not as dynamic as our P2P approvals where you can add things in flight and other such things. You know, this is sort of the way it is. And this is today. This is the 1.0 version. I'm not telling you that's not coming. That's just how it is. Right now, these approvals are based on groups. So I cannot add individuals here. I can add individuals as watchers. So we can also have a watcher. But I can create conditions on a budget approver. You can say, and the only option I have is to require this approval. So I could require the approval based on a set of conditions such that, you know, and the one I was going to, you know, do, it's here. So when the value of the group is facilities, that I bring in the facilities manager. So there's also sort of a limitation in the number of parallels we can have, but again, you can build approval rules around these. Okay, I'm going to save my change. Okay, now if I'm all ready and I want to, I'm going to say publish this, right? Publishing it then moves it to my administrator. Okay, so now it's published. It's listed in my published projects area. And you can see here we've got version numbers. So if I was to come in and edit this, I could have a new version of the same form. Okay, I would tell you that if you're going to, well, I'll probably be going through these as a best practice, but I would not translate any form until you were through your at least publishing and probably testing of it. Now, if I wanted to actually make this a template so that it can be used by other form builders or myself later, I can save it as a template. Okay. And now it's here. So it may not be the same one that we want to use, but it gives me a basis for how I'm using, you know, so that I can come in and, oh, yeah, that's how I set that up, and just edit maybe the list and the other things, but I have the functionality built here. Okay. If I want to preview this, you're going to see this is what it looks like as a form. So you lose all those sort of lines and stuff other than here. Okay. I'm previewing. Now I'm going to go to the home dashboard, and we're going to come into an area that I believe most of us as administrators are familiar with, and that's our core admin. So I mentioned that second group, the administrator group, and this is where they come in for core administration. Okay? And now you're going to see Forms and Extensions Manager. Now, I meant to tell you before, Forms and Extensions isn't just going to be limited to Form Builder. There are other types of extensions that Ariba is working on to allow us to join, just to be able to, I guess, extend the application further out. And, you know, through Open API. I know there's another one for tax that's being worked on. So this is going to be the area where we're going to access these. Okay. So there was one that I created, that capital asset request yesterday. I published it. I now have the one that I just did today with us here, this capital expense request. And you can see it is not published. It's not active. I mean, it's published, but it's not active, right? Now, also, this prefix is just like we have the PR, you might have put something on your POs, you know, whatever those are. We can define a prefix in the solution for the end user. So I am going to, for this one, I'm going to come in and I'm going to assign the prefix, and I'm going to say capital asset request, okay? And my, and that will be familiar to my users, so that will be the prefix, okay? We'll do that, and now you see that. So as the administrator, once I've confirmed testing and I'm happy with this, I can also control access. Okay. There we go. So if I didn't want this to be open to every single user, I could choose a group that it would be available to. Custom groups as well, all right? So, but maybe I just want to make this part of purchasing user. So anybody who is purchasing user access, I want them to be able to, and that sometimes is every single user. I have known organizations that limit this to a select buyer group. Okay. There we go. So I've done that, and then the last piece would be to activate it if I want, right? So I can activate. And now when I log in, this will be in my create as long as I have purchasing user permission in the solution, right? Now this is also, I told you, we don't have a specific fact table to the forms right now. It's really a CSV export. This is where we would come in and access the report. Now, because I haven't done anything with it, you're not really going to see much, but I'll show you what the template would look like here. Okay. Let me open that. There is one field, so you can see this is, the ID. These are the fields that I had. There's one widget, which is the data table. If you were to use that, it will not be exported in the CSV file. That may come later. I don't know if that's an enhancement that's coming, but if you use the data table, you will not be able to export that into the CSV file. I think that is, do we want to take a few questions, Colin?
Yeah, we actually got quite a few. Thanks to everyone that's been some great questions here in the chat. A lot of them I've been adding some feedback to, but let me go ahead. There's a couple that I want to pull out that were sent privately. Can we have more than one page for a form? Basically saying multi-page forms, and at this time we can only really offer the one-page view, which is the overview of all of the attributes at once, right?
Right. It doesn't have a multi-page view, but I haven't hit a limit with the number of widgets we can add. So I don't know what that looks like yet, but there's not a multi-page view, correct?
And Kelly did ask in the chat as well, can we export data from multiple forms, or is it only one form? If so, are all fields exportable? I know now we can export everything but the data table widget.
Right, but each form has its own export, so there's not a, I can't multi-check forms and then multi-report out. It's one at a time, one CSV at a time.
Right, okay. And then we have another, can we pick a person for approvers, or can you designate that person's manager in their chain of command? And that's like pulling in the chain supervisor role.
Right, so right now, and I'm going to say, this is today version 1.0, the ability to create that chain rule does not exist in the forms. So we can't do it within the forms. I think that is, the engine that we use for our approval flows in Ariba is something that they are looking to work with in these forms as well, but it's just not there for today. In the approval rules, we can add groups right now. You can add individuals as watchers.
Is it possible for us to add approvers based upon attribute selections made by the widgets? I don't think we can, but that's another one.
So the way that you can do it is you can require an approver based on a value in the form. So as I was mentioning earlier, I created this capital asset request, and I asked, like, is this an IT asset? Is it a facilities type of asset, something else, right? So with each of those, I could put a condition on the approval flow that said, if the answer to that question is this, then add this approver. We can do that, yes.
Great, awesome.
It's only requiring, though. That's the only option we have, is to require the approval if a value is.
Right. Okay. A couple others. These are about the visibility condition options we have. You know, what can we do right now within the form tool versus what's available still within an E-form or D-form form template? Is it possible to display an attribute based upon the selection of another attribute, saying, you know, attribute 1 is chosen B, and because of B, we see the other field. But if it's A, it's not going to show.
Right. So if you recall on the justification, I had that, I had it require, but there's also the option to whether I show or hide that field based on another value. So I could have added a condition, or I probably would have made that one show at 1500, require at 1500. So I could have used 2 conditions on that same field.
Okay, there's another question here. Can we add parallel approvers to supervisor? And say yes, we can do sequential or parallel, right?
Yes. There are limits, though, to how many parallels, and I think it's just 2 right now.
Okay, and are we able to add line level fields? And really that's done by the data table widget, is the line level field option.
Yeah, it really doesn't support line level detail at this point in time.
As far as the approval flow, are we able to add external users like suppliers or like a third-party user, you know, a contractor? I would say
if they have a group. So it's the group that is what drives that. So if they are in a group, you would be able to.
All right,
it's
perfect.
Not by, right, I don't, you know what, I didn't try third parties in the watcher to know that there's any, I haven't seen anything documented that said third parties wouldn't. They'd be considered a user. They're just not an enterprise user.
Okay, and is there any way to give certain?
Well,
go ahead, finish.
I wanted to be clear that this is only available in the buyer space, right? So, because I feel like that question is leaning towards something that you do, like a supplier information type of request, and that is not supported with this right now. They are looking into it, but it's not there yet.
Yeah, and that was one of our questions. So if the team wants to know about when can we expect the form builder outside of the procurement solutions, you know, and like on the strategic sourcing side for contracts, SIPM, or supplier management, or sourcing, your commercial engagement executive can check in with our product team to see if we have a roadmap for that yet.
Yeah, and I did check. I checked last night. There's no determined date yet. I think what they want to do, from what I've seen and heard, is to build out this piece. I think that the bigger need is in procurement. There's almost every Ariba buyer organization I work with has a need for a form. You know, if you think about something just like I showed here, a capital asset request, right? That's one. Another one is just that sort of vendor-supplier setup, gathering, the details and the W-9 and all of that. Those are really, really key in the procurement space, and I think they want to build this out with the functionality before they start working in the D-form area. Now, I'd also like to say D-forms and E-forms are not decommissioned, and you've seen right now today that Forms Builder, or I think they're going to call it Ariba, SAP Ariba Forms, but this offers some functionality, but not everything. There's obviously those E-forms do utilize the approval process engine, so there would be ways that you may not be able to utilize this yet, and so you may still look to use the E-form. But this is, it's free, it's a feature, it's not, there's no, you don't have to add a subscription to this one, you can turn it on. Another one I've seen, another use case I've seen is for education reimbursements. That a lot of companies are using them for, or a few companies are using it for that. Okay, a couple more questions?
Let's see. Yeah, we do have quite a few. Just and by the way, if there's any that I'm missing, please feel free to reiterate if we don't cover all of them here, and we can rope back. All right. So where would the form show up in Ariba once completed and sent to them? That should show up from the Create Form option, and the form. And the form and extension option under Manage, that's only available to your administrator that you give the permission for custom form administrator as a group.
So
you need to add.
Right, the Manage, this Manage Forms extension is the I'm going to mix them up here, the Designer, right? So if you have Designer, it's called Custom Form Designer, you'll see this. The ability to go and do like the prefix and the report, that's all done through Core Admin, and that's through the Custom Form Administrator role. So these will show up in your to-do area once you have them. Now, I don't know if I actually have purchasing user because I don't, oh, there it is. Capital asset request, I do. So now you can see that I can actually create this form as the user. And this is what it appears to me. And then once I'm done, I can submit. Okay. So that showed you there. Was there another part to that question? Did I miss something?
No, that I believe covers it. Let us know if not. But another one, I'm just trying to hit the rest of these real quick so you can do part 2 here. Can we add notes when denying a form? Is there an option for comments?
No, yeah, that's one of the, I think the things that are going to come up in the 2.0 is in that approval process, being able to add some comments.
Can we embed these forms in a requisition? Like, where can we drop them?
Yes, you can. You can create a link within the rec. You'd probably create a custom field to do it, but yes, you can.
Right, good news. Okay, so let's see, what else do we have? Okay, implementing in a test environment. What's the best practice? Should we build them out and test? Is there a way to export and import them to production then?
No, you can't just like, you can't like take a CSV file and load the form kind of thing, but I'm going to get into some best practices around what you would do. So that may be my good segue here. I'll take, if there's any other questions.
Actually, in wrapping up with the last one, and it doesn't sound like it's possible with that, is it possible to load data or values for the fields into the forms? Like how we can export it out?
Well, so we can connect to master data. So one of the, let me go back in here. One of the fields I brought in, I think it was in this one here. Did I? Okay, so maybe I'll bring it in. Maybe I didn't. I thought I did. So data source chooser, right? I'm going to bring that in. I thought I brought this in. Oh, did not. Oh, I did. I did. Cost center. The cost center is, so here, this is going back to my list of cost centers. So if I have master data, you can see I can pull these in, okay? So there is that ability to bring in, and again, like I showed you before, you could import a list for some of these values. I'm gonna just exit here. Oh, discard my changes, okay? So you can bring those in, but not so much like uploading. I think the only other opportunity you would have is this data table. So this you can cut and paste into an Excel. When you bring this in, you're going to, sort of like when you bring it into a PowerPoint, you're going to say how many columns, how many rows, and then you can cut and paste into it. So that might be an option for you. Because we only have about 10 minutes left, I'm going to continue. Colin will, at the end of this, he'll provide me a list of any questions that were not answered, and I will follow up with those. Hopefully though, and if we have time at the very, very end, I will. Okay. So just some best practices around the creation. Make sure that you have data collection standards. So as Ariba will tell you that you may not use these to collect things like Social Security numbers, okay? You can do an EIN, but you cannot collect a Social Security number. So anything that is against any type of like regulation in a country that you're not allowed to collect, make sure that you have some data collection standards. Okay. I do recommend providing templates. So the idea with the two roles is that the designer might be someone in, say, IT, and IT they have their own capital asset request. They also have a new hire document for onboarding folks. That's another use. And then they might have something else related to the handling of IT sometimes has something that's related to, like, if you want to ask them to donate old computers, right? They may have a form that you use to request that. So you could give the designer role to someone in that organization, and I would recommend, someone in your administrative group creating some templates to guide them as to where they go, right? Because your one designer may not be, even though I don't find this to be overly technical, I think giving them a template to start with, and then sharing those templates. So if you have such a form in the U.S. and maybe it needs a couple of tweaks to be able to use in Germany or France, you can do the same by sharing that template and letting someone take it, and then maybe possibly, it might be as simple as a translation, right? Whenever possible, offer that help text and those instructions, right? So put the hints in, put the help text in, add instructions wherever possible. Don't over-clutter, but, make that available so that your users understand what it is that you're looking to gather. Okay? I definitely say plan ahead. Make sure that you don't just sit down and try to drag and drop a bunch of these things and then figure it out as you go along. It can get a bit frustrating, and then you're spending time moving things around. One of the easiest things is if you already have a paper form, that you could use that as your way to build it out. And I've done that with a couple of customers. We've just got and built out a paper-based form, okay? Make sure to check your conditions. So if you are, say, requiring a field, make sure that you don't hide that field, because then the user can never see it. So just check your validations and your blanks to make sure that you have something in there. And also test. Make sure that you test. Don't simply publish and activate things without testing them. You don't necessarily know how that's going to, pan out. Now, testing, just as a best practice for testing forms, I showed you access controls. I would actually create a group for testing, put that access control on, and then activate the form. That's one of the easiest ways to test something real without putting it out there for everyone. Once it's tested, you can relax that access control to allow everyone or to allow a larger group of individuals to use the form. Okay. So again, these best practices, plan ahead, really consider your design. It does matter where you're putting things. If you're putting you should put like elements together. So if you're gathering accounting information, put those elements together. If you're gathering supplier or like your vendor-related information, put those elements together. Okay. Think about what those approvers need to be and look like, knowing what is the capability within the solution at this time. Then you publish. Then you can test. Once you finish testing is when I would tell you to translate, because you're going to pull this out, translate it, and upload it. It's not done within the application. So make sure you're at that point where you're tested, tried, and true, okay? Then consider user access and activate. And then lastly, if you want, that ID prefix, changing it. So we know that the CF custom form is the identifier by default. We've done some more. Are there any other questions?
Yes, we do have a couple more that came through. We have a good one here. In the data source field, say cost center, for example, when we're exporting the data, can we configure if it's the code or the description that gets exported out? Or in other words, can we control, like if it's a table of data, can we control what column is getting exported out?
Which column?
I know we can in the form templates, but I don't know of a way with this tool. I don't think we have that option yet. That is another question, is when can we anticipate phase 2 of the form builder, the next release?
So it was Q2. It's Q2, but I think it may be latter part of May, June timeframe. So I can't give you a date because it really hasn't been published.
Okay. And if the data table widget can't be exported out of Ariba, what are some good use cases for it? Now, I actually was checking into this. I personally found it's more of a real-time widget. You know, it's not for export. It allows for your users to search dynamically through the text they enter. It saves automatically as they're keying it in, so if they hit enter, you know, it's more of a dynamic real-time widget rather than one to export data by.
Right. Colin doing his research.
Can we add rows dynamically to the data table? Like, can an end user edit it? No, I don't think that we have an option for that now.
No,
it's just the administrator.
Defined, yeah, it's defined when you drop the widget. You select those columns and rows.
And if a form template is expected to change after it was published and used in production, what is the process to make those new changes on the existing template?
So you would go back into the forms and extensions, and just as I did before, you would click on the existing one, begin your edit, save, and you would see it as a V2.
That's exactly right. It's going to mimic the functionality of a lot of our documents or templates. So if any of you work within strategic sourcing, it's going to be that same process where you want to revise anything, you have to create a new version, then republish it. Now, when we publish version 2, this is the last question I'm seeing, are the changes retroactive and applied to the forms that are existing already? Or are they only applied to the forms created going forward?
Go forward. Yeah, go forward.
All right. So in order to preserve
I also have seen, so if a user's added to a group or an element is added to some area of master data, it's not exactly real time. I've seen a little delay in that, and it could be that I'm in test environments, but I've seen about I'd say a couple hour delay that gets represented in the form.
All right, only one more quick one, and then what we can do, we can open up our polling for today. I think that'll wrap up our questions. Yeah. If there's anything left out, now in the chat, please give me your email address if you'd like to get a copy of the slide deck or a link to the recording as soon as it's available. Last one though, can we assign the owner of the form the permission to run the report extract or export? And again, I think well, you do that by granting the custom form administrator role. So, and that doesn't mean that's not the same as the customer admin. So if you were to give someone just custom form administrator, they'd be able to pull that report, activate, do the prefix, those things that I showed you. It doesn't give them access to every other aspect of core admin. So that's the way you could do it, but there's not a separate one that just says you could run the report and nothing else. And that report is really an export, is being able to go in and just export the data table, the CSV form. So it's not building a report. There's nothing dynamic. You're not filtering on that. You're basically just taking a data pull from, so you can't look at date ranges or anything like that. I believe all of that will come. I don't know if that's near future, further future. I don't know where on the roadmap that is, but we're just looking early days right now at this. So, Colin, I want you to give everybody time to get their poll in. So if you would start the poll, and then what I'm happy to do is to continue answering questions for a couple minutes while, if you're kind enough to take the poll, I'll stay for a couple of moments. Yeah, we have a minute remaining, so thank you. If anyone can please take that last minute to fill out the poll. It's open now, and we appreciate any feedback you can give us to make sure we're hitting all of the points and making sure you all get what you need.
Yeah, and also help us understand how the webinars are used.
Right, and for those multitaskers, if you want to press *6, you can unmute yourself and ask any questions to me or Alice while you chat or while you do the poll. But thanks again for everyone's attendance.
Yeah, there was one question, Alice, are change forms allowed on this e-forms or SmartForms? Meaning, similar to a requisition, we can create a V2 change requisition and so on?
Yeah, no, there's not, so one thing you can't do is you can't start and save. So you either have to just submit and go, and then, you just have to submit. You can withdraw. I think you can withdraw to create change, but there's no saving it and then yes, I think you can withdraw.
One more limitation I've seen, or something that I was concerned about, is how do we test the approval flow? Because in the form we did not see the approval flow section showing up before, and we only see the cancel or the submit button. So if we create an e-form, and if I want to test all the different scenarios for a particular approval flow, we would have to submit forms every time to test all those approval flows as an administrator.
Yeah, right now, that's why I said you publish, but you publish to a testing group. That's how you would test. It's not as, we can't do it as dynamically as we can in the P2P approval engine. That it's not built off of that same engine. I do believe that there will be, some of that in the future, but today where we are, it's where it is right now. It's a little rudimentary right now.
Thanks, Alice. We'll hope for the list to be. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So have a couple more minutes open for the poll in case anyone wants to respond. Again, thank you so much for everyone that did. We still have another minute or so for any other questions that you guys
I have one quick question, Alice. You showed adding all kind of fields to the forms. Like, can we add a custom cluster root field to it from the FMD, from the pre-selected fields listed out there?
You mean from the data choosers?
I would like to add a custom
oh, no, yeah,
object.
not right now. Yeah, there's not yet. I think that's another thing, again, custom fields are not here yet.
Yeah, yeah. Right now you can only pick from the available widgets. And now the thing is we still offer the form templates, eForm or dForm, which does allow for you to have FlexMaster data fields with a table of data like that. But you can look forward to that in the future for this tool. It's something that, you know, we're talking about and it's being planned.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I'm excited. One of the things that we do here in BPC is we do new features. And so earlier this month, I did the features that had come out in that quarter. I will continue to do those. So, and I will be excited to when Forms 2.0 is out to talk about those features. So keep your eye on the upcoming webinars. If you're an Ariba customer, your CEE will forward you that listing. I believe they're also available on the ariba.com site, so that because we do get externals that join these. So just keep your eyes out for the features, and when there is new functionality, I'll be able to do another one of these webinars, and we will have the fun of exploring all of that together.
And one more thing, Alice. Can we add a parallel approver to the first approver, like supervisor, instead of the second or third approver? Is it possible today?
Let me see. We could try that one right out now, because I think you can. Yeah.
Type in that.
Okay. How's that? But it can't be a person. Right now it's a group.
Yeah,
okay?
I mean group, yeah, obviously.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. But, you know, you could create a group with one person in it. I've done that for, you know, special rules in P2P even, like a CFO rule that I wanted to do. So there's no support for things like the helper files in here, that type of thing. That's not existent here. That's something that we have to look forward to.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is from the demo I see you were able to add a parallel group approver to the second node, but I haven't seen the first node.
Yeah, it was just the way I did it. I just added them out here, but yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do it.
Yeah, hey, great questions. Well, that does wrap up the poll and as well for our session today. Are there any other questions or concerns before Alice and I wrap up?
Okay.
All right.
If you've provided your email address to Colin, I will send out the deck the presentation that I used today. And then these recordings are usually available about 1 month after presentation. So if you do want to access those later. And if you have BPC hours and you want to work through learning how to do more on these, please engage with us on this and any other topic that you need. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today.
Great work, Alice. All right, that wraps us up. Have a great rest of the day, everyone.
Thank you.